for attending tonight. Out of respect for each other, you can wear a face covering if you wish. You don't have to. There's a patio out back. You can step out for fresh air if you need to. I also want to let you know that this is being videoed and recorded. Good evening. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Summer Portwood. I was born and raised in this community. Graduated from Seymour High School in 1999. Then left to attend college, where I earned a master's in business administration. After graduation, I worked in Central and South Texas as a pharmaceutical sales representative for many years. I eventually moved back to Seymour in 2010 and have since opened 5 businesses in an effort to make Seymour the ultimate small town to call home. Tonight's meeting was organized out of my love for this town and the citizens that call Seymour home. The meeting's main focus will be our city electrical rates, the fact that we do not have the ability to choose between providers. I am in hopes that when we leave here tonight, we are more educated on this topic and unified on what needs to be done as a community. I've invited multiple guests to speak in order to provide you a more clear understanding of our city's municipally owned utilities, or MOU, and their impact on our community, in an attempt to answer the question, what we can do as citizens to enact change, and how we can work together along with our mayor and city council members to make Seymour an affordable place to live and run a business. Thank you, Mayor Hintrick, council members Broom, Wynn, Miller, Glass, and Fair for attending tonight. There will also be a question and answer session where each of you will have an opportunity to speak if you wish. I want to give everyone something to chew on as we begin the discussion on what is best for Seymour. Yes, I am a business owner and I am concerned with how I pay my electricity bills each month. But there is someone more important than me that I think we should be looking after. Senator John Hoeven of North Dakota is credited with saying, "Caring for our seniors is perhaps the greatest responsibility we have. Those who walk before us have given so much and made possible the life we all enjoy." According to the Texas Demographic Center, as of 2018, the percent of population 65 years plus in Baylor County was 25%. That is 685 people. The trend of our country, according to the government website, was that our population is old, getting older. Ladies and gentlemen, many of the elderly in our community use over half of their monthly Social Security check to pay their electrical bill and struggle to maintain a lifestyle that's even remotely close to the one they wanted for their retirement years. I have spoken to multiple senior citizens in our community in order to confirm what I just said. I have seen their utility bills. I've seen their Social Security and disability checks. Speaking of a limited income, according to the Texas Public Schools Explorer in 2018, 338 of Seymour's 582 students were considered economically disadvantaged. That's 58.1%. I don't have children, but I can imagine the financial struggles those families are going through right now with the current economic issues that we face in the world, plus having to buy school supplies and school clothes. It's becoming crystal clear, because of our city's high electrical rates and no other choice but one provider, Seymour is not a place to retire on a limited income. It's not a place to live if you're economically disadvantaged. It's not a place to prosper as a business owner. It's not a place right now where everyone feels like they are part of a community that has put everyone's best interest at heart. But it is a place that is home to intelligent, creative, caring people who are here tonight to find a solution that Seymour is the place to retire, the place to raise a family with good schools while on a limited income, run a family-owned business, have a nursing home facility, health clinic, and hospital to depend on, and lastly, provide a united community. Before I introduce the first speaker, I would like to speak on the historical facet of our city electrical rates. I feel we need to know how we got to where we are, because many of us in this room were in elementary school or younger, some not even born, when our city decided to become its only electrical provider to its citizens. It's my understanding Nolan Davis was the main advocate behind the city of Seymour buying the city's electric distribution system from Texas Electric Utility in 1985-86. The citizens in Seymour in a special election voted to have a municipal-owned electric, have them as their own provider in a special election. The city took 15 years to pay for the purchase, therefore owning outright beginning in 2000-2001 fiscal year. An anonymous source in our community stated this to me recently. Nolan Davis set in place for our citizens, kids and grandkids, to pay some of the lowest electrical rates in the state of Texas. The fact is, however, after 2 long days of calling all 70 municipal-owned electric departments in the state of Texas, myself, Seymour wins the award. Congratulations, you're paying the highest electric rate of any other MOU in the state of Texas. If you noticed, I said 70 Texas cities are an MOU out of over 3,300. That's only 2%, and we are the highest utility rate of the 2%. We are a unicorn, literally. Something I found interesting when I visited with the other various 70 cities that I called, few of them charge higher than average some of the cities did charge higher electric rates, your 12 cents a kilowatt was some of the highest. But basically, those cities pay 0 city property tax as an incentive to live and call their city home. In addition, about 80% offered reduced rates for commercial businesses and industry as an incentive to remain in or locate to their community. Ladies and gentlemen, these are examples of how a municipally owned utility is designed to work. In other words, for the good of their people. As I wrap up my opening comments, I want to quote CEO Mindy Grossman. She says, "I've always had a philosophy that position doesn't define power. Impact defines power. What impact are you making on people, and what impact are you making on business?" Seymour together can make an impact. We owe it to our past, present, and future. Our first speaker tonight is Randy McCord, and he spoke to the City Council last week, and he's here tonight once again to share his advocacy message.
I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening. You are certainly putting into effect and demonstrating your powerful civic duty just by the fact that you're showing up. You'd be surprised how many other communities, when they have meetings like this, stay at home and think that their presence and their voices don't make a lick of difference. Believe you me, it does. And so I want to thank you and commend you and show my appreciation to each and every one of you just for the fact of being here and listening to all the little presentations that are going to be given out this evening. To begin with, I would like to brag on our city employees and for the wonderful contributions and the hard work and service that they have committed to our community. I have no complaints whatsoever right now, at this point in time, during all the years that I have lived here with any of the employees. I commend, I congratulate, I praise the street department, the water department, the electric department, the police department, and all the other individuals who have given of their time, their effort, and their hard work to making Seymour, Texas a better community. Thank you for that. I know probably about 10 years ago, I went to the city manager and asked him to fix the street of all the potholes in front of my house. And just like that, about 2 or 3 days later, he sent a crew out and put down a brand new street, asphalt street, right in front of our house. And so I have personally benefited from the wonderful city of Seymour. We had a big storm Sunday week ago, and the electric department got out in the dead of night, around midnight, and worked real hard to restore our electricity. And so these electric department employees are some of our unsung heroes. So the next time you see somebody from the electric department that works here, the street department, one of your police officers, or the water department, whoever works for the city, give them a kind word, shake their hand, and a big pat on the back. I wish I had attended the council meeting that was held about 3 months ago, but at the time, I had no idea of the colossal negative impact that this increased electrical rate would create in our community. There has been turmoil, uproar, and upheaval. Nobody is happy, nobody is satisfied with the mammoth increase in our electrical rates. Zip, zilch, zero. Nobody is applauding, nobody is jumping up and down, nobody's doing double backflips over their elevated electrical bill. And to just echo what Summer has said, this is having a severe impact on the poor, the elderly, the single parents, the lower middle income families with children, not to mention the shops in town, the stores, the businesses, our hospital, and our nursing home. I talked with a man last week who is on a limited income of around, I believe he said $1,200 a month. He said that he could barely pay his own electric bill, his own utility bill. Well, not too long after he paid his own bill, a woman came up to him begging for help on her utility bill. And he said to me, "What could I do?" This poor woman was weeping and crying for help. So I paid it. What a magnificent gesture on somebody who could barely pay his own bill to reach down deeper into his own pockets and pay for this other poor woman's bill. Businesses, when taxes and utilities increase, and you probably already know this, pass the cost on to the customer, creating a double whammy. Whammy number one, the customer has to pay for the higher utility bill, and whammy number two, the customer has to pay for the higher price of goods and services. In addition, with the COVID pandemic, many businesses in our community had to close for several weeks, and y'all remember that. And now that they are just beginning to get back on their feet, the rug is pulled out from under them, and they're hit with a skyrocketing electric bill, another double whammy. Now every one of us in this room right here, has to live within a budget. If my expenses begin to exceed my income, I need to cut back on my expenses. This same approach should also apply to city governments. Excuse me. As I said last week at the council meeting, if there is any way or any possibility of rescinding the rate increase, to rescind means to cancel, do away with, revoke. If there's any way to do that, please do so. Who knows? Perhaps another vote could be taken. Who knows? Perhaps one or two other council members would have a change of heart and change their vote. I don't know if this is even a real option, but I threw it out there anyway. We'll see. I talked to my youngest son on the phone last night. He was absolutely astounded and flabbergasted at the astronomical electric bills we're paying here in town. This summer, he lived in a 60-year-old house with no insulation and the original windows in Canyon, Texas, which is a suburb of Amarillo. No insulation, the original windows, 60-year-old house. He told me that he kept his central cooling on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at 72 degrees. It never turned off. And his highest electric bill was only $250. Golf courses are nice. New airport landing strips, they're nice also. And brand new computerized water meter systems, they're nice. And many of us here in town enjoy these amenities. But what's even better by far is easing the burden of each individual citizen by going back to the reduced electrical rate that we once upon a time benefited from. Finally, in closing, I would like to recall the words of the Lord Jesus, who said regarding the less fortunate, "When you have done unto the least of these, you have done also unto me." Thank you for your patience, your courtesy, and your kind attention, and may God bless all of you.
All right, thank you, Mr. McCord. Local decisions create cities where people want to live, work, and do business. How do we create that? We want to create a place where it's not only a beautiful and safe place to live, but also an affordable place to live and raise a family. We want to create and maintain jobs in our community. We want and need to create an environment that new businesses can open and thrive in our community. We as citizens need to get involved in working with city officials to try to achieve those goals for the better of our community. So you're on slide 5. Budget. The annual budget provides us a picture of where and what our money is going towards to make this community better and to help create the city where people want to live, work, and do business. Annual municipal budget, a legally required plan of expenditures balanced by revenues for the fiscal year. Budgeting roles and responsibilities. City Council has sole authority by majority to vote and adopt and amend the annual budget. City clerk or financial officer is responsible for collecting and providing financial data to the mayor or council. City department heads are responsible for preparing, justifying, and reporting cost estimates for their department for the fiscal year. Budget workshops. The city of Seymour has had and will have many budget workshops over the next coming weeks, in which Misty attended the last one. It has been reported, I believe it was 2017, that the annual budget for the city of Seymour several years ago was $6.5 million. That has been reported as being 136% higher than any similar sized community based on a per capita basis. The average income in our community is 63% lower than the state average. The current revenue projection for the city of Seymour is around $8.7 million. For comparison, Vernon, our neighboring city just north of us, their current revenue projection for this year is set right just a little above $7 million for a population of over 10,000 people. So based on these statistics, or actually we've broken it down, based on 2,000 people in our community, that the city would need over $360 per person a month to fund this budget. Go down the road to Vernon, they would need $37 a person a month to fund their budget. Are we dependent on one type of revenue to fund all of our city departments? It has been stated by city officials and city employees that our city's revenue is generated by our electricity and not by our taxes or other public utilities. We must find additional sources of revenue in order to, for citizens and businesses,
to be able to invest into our community. There was discussion on increasing property taxes in order to generate additional revenue at the last city council budget hearing. The local businesses. We need to encourage and help invest in our small businesses owned and operated by local citizens invested in our community. We need to provide incentives for small businesses to help get them started and build up a community where people want to come shop and spend time and money, bringing additional revenue into our community. Let's all work together to be that city where people want to live, work, and do business.
Okay, Emily Ermis is now going to speak to y'all on how a municipal-owned utility model is intended to function. Emily will also educate us on property taxes as well as other options that we have instead of an MOU.
Okay, my name is Emily Ermis, and I was born and raised here as well. And I thank you all for coming tonight so that we can all find solutions together and be in together and figure the situation out. Tonight, I'm going to discuss more about what an MOU actually is, how that's supposed to function, how ours maybe not functioning in that way, and how taxes and other things play into that sort of system. Okay, so what is a municipally owned utility, or an MOU? It is owned and operated by your local community. The rates are set by elected council members. They're not as regulated as industry-owned utilities, or IOUs. They have lots of regulations that they have to adhere to. Our council can change the rates as they wish. We just experienced this in May. They are exempted from retail consumer choice. That means they're a monopoly. They get your business. You don't get to go choose anywhere else. They are supposed to be more responsive to community priorities since the council members live within the community and they're more accessible to us as the public. But we question that tonight, whether our voices are actually being heard. It is supposed to cost the public less than industry-owned utilities. We all know that's not happening. It's designed to keep your taxes low. So the critical thinking question I want you to ask yourself is our current MOU functioning in this way? So let's start with the City of Seymour rates. They have a rate schedule that they've got posted on their own website that you can go and figure out how to see how they figure your bill. It's extremely confusing to the common person. You have to take the first 250 kilowatts and multiply by a number, and then the next 450 and multiply by another number, and then the next 550 by another number, the next 750 by another one, and then you take your total kilowatt usage and multiply by that power cost factor that they like to tell you about, okay? So, the rates actually vary from customer to customer based on your consumption. Typically, the range we've been seeing is 13 to 15 cents a kilowatt. Our personal home in July was 13.29 cents a kilowatt, and my mother-in-law's home was 14.56 kilowatts, or cents per kilowatt in July. So the city does not give a rate schedule on their website for business owners, but they state that their rate is somewhere around 18 cents a kilowatt, which makes it near impossible to make a business work here. It would be a huge red flag for any business that's looking at Seymour as a potential place to put their establishment, that they go online and it says call for rates. If you cannot be proud of what you're advertising, it's too high. So let's look at some competitor rates. I got online and there's a website that you can go to and it's called Power to Choose. And I looked up what we could get electricity for in Seymour if we had the option. And there are rates on there starting as low as 5.4 cents a kilowatt. And one of the very highest that I found was with TXU, and they are selling electricity at like 13.8 cents, 13.2 cents, and 11.9, depending on which plan you pick. But listen to this. So that rate sounds like Seymour, right? Well, they offer free nights and solar days. So your electricity is free from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily. So if you're a family like us, you could schedule to run your laundry all night and not be paying electricity on that. They have another option. It's called the free pass option. And it excludes your 7 highest usage days every month. So in July or August, when you have 7 straight days of 100-degree weather, those days don't cost you anything. So let's now look and switch over. Now we know what the rates look like. Let's talk a little on taxes and what your taxes should look like in an MOU. Okay, so in Seymour, we all know we do enjoy a pretty low property tax, which is the only area of the MOU that's currently functioning as intended. However, per our local tax assessor's office, the property values in Seymour are going to increase every year for the next several years because we were so below state averages. Our school was about to lose funding over it. So you have an appraiser driving around your community right now, reevaluating your properties. They're going to say that it's worth more next year, and you're going to be taxed on more money, which means you're going to pay more tax, okay? Which this does benefit your city in a way, okay? Because they're going to receive more money because you're being taxed on a higher value. Also, in today's banner, the city of Seymour has proposed to raise your tax rate in addition to your appraisal values increasing. So that's kind of a double whammy from a tax perspective. You are looking at an increase in your tax rate and your appraisal for next year. According to ClearGov, which is a website where you can go pull statistics on different governments, city governments, it says that in 2017, our city's expenditures were $6.5 million, which is 136% higher per capita than similar communities. It also said that our funding was $6.8 million, which is 130% higher per capita than similar communities. In the fiscal year that we're currently in, the city revenue projections have reached over $8.7 million, almost $8.8 million. So this budget continues to grow, and they're going to continue needing more and more from you as a citizen. So, I don't know, I'm sure most of you cannot see this, but this is a comparison of our city tax rates to other cities that are around us. And what I need y'all to understand is that a lot of these cities that they've given this comparison with are not MOUs, okay? So they've got a comparison to Albany, Archer City, Haskell, Mundy, Olney, Kiwanis, and Stanford. Those are not MOUs. So when they compare your tax rate to your surrounding communities and tell you, well, you're paying lower than everybody. Well, yeah, but they're not an MOU and they've got a lot cheaper electricity. Okay, so in Goldthwaite, Texas, who is an MOU, residents are currently paying 11 cents a kilowatt. And they know that that rate is a little above average there. So what they've done for their citizens is made them pay 0 tax, property tax to the city. Okay, we're not getting that. So our city officials have explained to us that we are enjoying a low tax rate because of our electricity sales. But let's do some math. So from July 2019 to July 2020, we personally spent $3,235.87 on electricity with the city of Seymour for our personal home. During that time period, we consumed a little over 26,000 kilowatts. If I calculate that same kilowatt usage using a lower rate of, let's say, 7 cents, we would have saved over $1,400. If I calculate the same kilowatt usage using a rate of 9 cents, we would have saved over $880. For businesses, this savings is even greater because you're paying a ridiculous rate. So one local business owner figured out that she could have saved $4,200 in electricity costs, even with a double in her tax rate. So I'm going to give you a personal example on my taxes last year. Last year we paid $441.94 to the city of Seymour for property tax. Even if they double that next year, that means I'll only pay $441 more next year, which that's a 100% increase, y'all. Yet, as you saw on the previous slide, we would have saved $800 to $1,400 with lower electricity costs. So we would have been better off doubling or even tripling our taxes than paying what we're paying in electricity. By the way, according to Texas law, cities cannot raise property taxes by more than 3.5% in a year without voter approval. So it would take them more than 20 years to double your tax rate. So let's look at utilities as revenue versus taxes as revenue. MOUs use electricity to fund revenues for their local budget, and they push the idea that constituents are taxed less. However, according to a study completed by Adrian Moore and Jeff Warner, who are researchers for Reason Public Policy Institute, the revenue that MOUs are generating through electricity is essentially a hidden tax, okay? And city leaders can more easily manipulate an MOU's revenue transfers than they can a local tax. They've got to have your voter approval to go up by more than 3.5%. They don't need your approval to go up on your electricity rates. So it's a lot easier to manipulate than your taxes. They're using that electricity as their cash cow. So what does the future for municipal-owned utilities look like? Well, according to the policy study that was conducted by Moore and Warner, participating in competitive markets is not easy for government-owned entities like our MOU. And markets don't function well when groups of participants play by different legal, tax, and regulatory rules. MOUs currently get preferential access to cheap federal hydropower. They do not pay federal income taxes, and they can use lower cost tax-exempt bonds to pay for capital projects, which gives them an unfair advantage in the market in comparison to your industry-owned utilities. However, those industry-owned utilities are still beating our prices. And it's because they have innovative ideas about how to get their rates down. They have to compete. Your MOU does not have to. In today's world, competition rules the market. Take internet and cable, for example. How many options do you have? Hulu, Vudu, Netflix, all these options that you have now. Okay, in the future, our electricity is moving that direction too. We're looking at solar and wind energy options. People are looking for cleaner energy. Moore and Warner suggest that MOUs are embracing a static market view because they are not acknowledging that the creative destruction of competition is a healthy process, and they don't accept that some of them may be part of the dead skin that needs to be shed to make room for new growth. So, some key considerations to take from my presentation is that an MOU could be great in theory if it's run appropriately, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the quality of governance. Transparency by elected officials and trust between them and the public is critical. Do we currently have that? Has our current MOU been governed appropriately? Is it serving the public as it was intended when we set it up? Is it hearing our concerns? Do you trust the MOU to be governed appropriately in the future? Do we have choices as voters and constituents? Research on Lubbock Power and Light, they just deregulated their city. They're still in the process of it. They're working out some issues, but they voted and they've got about 70% deregulated and they're working towards the other 30. We also have reps here from Tri-County that could possibly answer some questions about the option of a co-op buying us out. They know electricity at Tri-County. That's what they do. They're not worried with what hours the dump needs to be open. They're not worried about all the issues that are going on that a city has to deal with. They do electricity for a living, and they've not had a rate change, according to their website, since 2002. So they're very stable. So I just want y'all to think about some of those things, and we need to consult legal advice about what our next steps are as citizens to ensure a better future for our town. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ermis. Sunday McAdams will now come put into perspective the cost of electrical rates to a business in Seymour compared to our neighboring town only. Good evening. First thing, I want you to know I am thankful for Seymour and its people. And I thank each and every one of you for what you do for our small hometown. Success takes people working together. And I sense from everyone in this room that you're ready to roll up your sleeves and get to work. It's common to think that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but we don't always really know if it is. In regard to the topic of tonight's meeting, however, I have run a business on both sides of the fence and would like to share some data. Give you a comparison of apples to apples, as you might say. My husband Clint, along with Summer and myself, own twice the ice here in Seymour and owned the location in Olney for 8 years. The small ice and water vending units were very similar in build, except that Olney's machine was 1.5 times bigger than Seymour's, both in size and in the equipment that requires electricity. Olney has 2 electric providers to choose from: Texas New Mexico Power and Fort Belknap Electric Cooperative. We chose to be a part of the member-owned cooperative, and the price we paid was 8.3 cents per kilowatt. In Seymour, we only had the one choice. Therefore, we paid 14.3 cents per kilowatt, almost twice
the price. I created a spreadsheet that reflected 1 year's worth of business at both locations from July 2017 to July 2018. Alney's larger machine used 38,000 kilowatts, and Seymour's smaller machine used 20,000 kilowatts, almost a 2 times difference, which is spot on with the size difference in the machines. Alney's electrical bill for the entire year was only $301 more than Seymour's. Not $2,288 more if you were to stick to the 2 times math formula using Seymour's price. One thing I would like to mention about our usage is that the ice machines run on a 3-phase circuit, which is more efficient than single-phase, so our usage is not as much as a business with single phase. The city tax in Olney was a little higher, but not significantly so, about a $40 difference. The water and sewer rates were very comparable to Seymour's, so the grass does seem to be greener on the other side of the fence. The sales tax twice the ice provides for the city of Seymour. It's nothing to write home about, but I was raised to believe in the old saying, every penny counts. We have other businesses in this town that do generate a lot of sales tax, and we need to be catering to their needs, which includes competitive electrical rates. Seymour is kind of unique in that they need to be doing 2 times the catering, in my opinion, because they don't get the full 2% sales tax proceeds that most towns receive. The city receives 1%, and our hospital district receives the other 1%. Both are deserving of it, but we may need to work 2 times smarter and harder. I have to confess that I am ashamed of myself as a business owner. I have owned Twice the Ice for 10 years now, and have just laid down and become complacent with what I was paying for electricity. That was not very smart on my part. I did go to the city a few times and inquire about our high rates, but I was always told we would be out of our contract shortly and things would get better. But here we are 10 years later and things aren't better. When we installed Twice the Ice, we didn't know it would cost us twice the price to operate compared to other local towns, which also pretty much means twice as long to make a profit. In July, when our electrical bill was $686.25 on the little ice hut, and the unit kept malfunctioning because we were trying to save electricity and money and keep the air conditioner off, we put it up for sale. Did you see a for sale sign on it? No. We decided we couldn't sell it to someone in town, knowing that the city's utilities eat into your profit like they do. We wanted to still have some friends. So we sold it online to a buyer in the Hill Country. The buyer really likes the Seymour location and would possibly even entertain leaving it here and hiring someone to manage it. But we were upfront with him and said it was not feasible to leave it here because of city utilities. The buyer will take possession soon and the lot will be empty. And a little more sales tax will leave Seymour and benefit another small town in Texas. I have other business ideas I would love to try out, but this is not the time to try one in Seymour, Texas. I also have a student in college that dreams of moving back here one day to open a business and continue to make Seymour great. He's one of the reasons I'm standing up here tonight. We need a change so that the young people have incentives to move back to Seymour and raise their families, generate sales tax by eating and buying here, and possibly open up their own business. We have had and still do have some incredibly intelligent kids graduating from Seymour High School. Let's make it our mission to get them back here.
Thank you, Ms. McAdams. Daryl Shriver, I'd like to invite him up now. He's our invited guest, General Manager and Chief Executive Officer of Tri-County Electric Cooperative. He will now speak to us on the Texas electric market and what all of it encompasses.
Thanks, Summer. My name is Daryl Shriver. I'm the CEO of Tri-County Electric Cooperative. I know some of you here tonight are probably members of Tri-County, but we did take just a few minutes to tell you a little bit about who Tri-County is. We're electric cooperative, like Fort Belknap mentioned earlier. We're one of 75 in the state of Texas. Tri-County is probably the fourth largest in the state. We serve about 118,000 meters, stretching from North Fort Worth all the way out here to Seymour. We have 6 offices. We have 1 office in Keller, 1 in Aleta, Hazel, Granbury, and then we have 2 out here, 1 in Mundy and 1 in Seymour. We have about 18 employees that work here in Seymour. We serve inside the city limits of the city of Seymour. Some of you are on our lines, living inside the city, and some are not. Tri-County Electric Co-op, we're a nonprofit. For all our profits that we receive go back to our members in forms of patronage capital. We pay those back in dividends each year. We're on about an 18-year rotation, paying our dividends back to our members. Each year around the month of September, we return our patronage capital back to our members, and then every year in October we have what an annual shareholders meeting is. Around the turn of 2000 or so, BK Electric Cooperative was here, and the manager was at that time making a long-term decision that BK's future would be very difficult. And at that time there was a discussion of the board of directors and management to consider merging BK Electric Cooperative into Tri-County. That merger was completed years ago, and BK today, the district here, is a part of Tri-County. I say that in jest that it takes a while, and I want to warn you, it takes a while to do the things that you need to do to prepare. And you know, we try to be part of that solution for you. It's a difficult thing. It's taken us years to do the things that are necessary out here to be a part of the system. And it's important that we heard the mention about rates. It's important that you watch the rates. I cannot tell you the advantage you have in Tri-County because we are able to use the economies of scale to our advantage. And that's how we're able to watch our bottom line and we're able to watch our rates. You know, I'm not really here tonight to take anything bad or good. I think we're kind of in a situation for Tri-County it's kind of been a no-win situation here. You know, we had a bunch of folks in the city that were mad a year ago, and they wanted to switch off of the city onto Tri-County. And we had a visit with the city. Tonight's our 3rd time to kind of tell it, but I don't know if everybody knew the story, but we've talked to the city 3 times about possibly partnering with the city, you know, acquiring the utility, trying to operate it for the city, and figure out ways that revenue would benefit and keep the town going. Our goal is not be perceived to take anything over and cause any ill will. It's just to be a good partner. We've been partners in communities well over 80 years. And so it's important to me that first I don't embarrass any of our employees that live here, and that we do not embarrass our members, that we project a good, humble, servant attitude toward helping and partnering with one another. But the city filed a complaint against us at the PUC over our boundaries, and we're in that discussion at the Public Utility Commission now. And so when that happened a year ago, our gentleman's agreement was that we would not solicit or take over any customers that were interested in this area switching over to Tri-County until this dispute of our boundary was established. And it has a whole lot to do with the days that the city was formed, the old Texas Electric and the old BK system were originally established. And there's some territory discussions that we're having on who gets to serve where and who doesn't. So we're amicably working with the city the best we can to try to work this situation out. And for the folks that are local that have asked the question, I just wanted to be on the record so you knew exactly what was happening and why we've been very quiet about the issue up to this point. The electric industry as a whole has changed. I heard it mentioned in 1999, the legislature changed the laws on how the grid operates. And whether we like it or not, electricity moved from a delivery to an energy commodity. Today, energy is traded on the market, whether you're in competition, your larger cities, municipalities are exempt. Okay, municipalities are exempt, and electric cooperatives are exempt from the Public Utility Commission for the simple fact of how we operate. Electric co-ops, we have our members. They own. Our customers are our member owners. They elect our board of directors, and our members have access to our board of directors. So locally here, we have a board member, Mr. Miller, Larry Miller. He's on our board of directors. Larry is elected by our membership every 3 years. And the reason we've been granted special privileges is how we operate, how transparent we are, and how accessible we are to the members. So our rate structure is controlled by our membership through our board of directors, and that's how I run the co-op. And in competition, that didn't change. We were able to gain that favored curry. We exemplified that the cost of customer choice into Texas would be very burdensome to the rural and suburban areas. And so co-ops were given the option, and by law, to do what the city of Lubbock's doing or to stay where you are. So far, after 20 years, we found more benefit of being a bundled service utility, operating a bundled rate to our members as opposed to being customer choice, as others have. But that duty is on our board. They decide that ultimately through our membership when we'll be in customer choice, if we ever will. I would say that, power to choose, retail competition, it is a thing that sometimes choice is in the eyes of the beholders. Some people find choice to be a very important thing. What we have found a lot of times with our members is our local service, our bundled rate, our bill is what our members like because of the access. And the ability to get the power on, keep the power on, is a big thing to our members as well. So we've operated in that bundled utility statute since 1999, and right now continue to plan to do that going forward. And I'd just say a little bit about how rates are designed by us. Being a larger utility, we have the ability to spread our cost over our membership a lot easier than the smaller entity. And that's the advantage sometimes we have over the city here or other smaller entities, because we have the ability to share those costs. And that's why it affords us the opportunity, when BK became a part of Tri-County, to keep our offices open here, keep our employees hired, and to continue to expand on what we do going forward. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schreiber, for being here with us tonight. We're now going to open the floor for questions. We're going to try to do this as orderly as possible. If you'll raise your hand, then we'll call on you in an orderly manner, bring you this microphone.
Hi. All right. My question is it normal to have a non-disclosure clause in the contract between the city and the electric provider? Is that a normal thing? And how do you get that out of there? Because they will not disclose the contract. They're not transparent. They refused an open records request. So.
Okay. Mr. Schreiber, can you shed some light on this?
I don't think I can speak for the city, but our attorney's here with me, so he's trying to help me. But I think generally you got to kind of consider the competitiveness issue. And even for instance, like the city, in some areas they're kind of competing against us. So I think they would probably want to not disclose contracts and
terms a lot to make it a non-competitive entity. And so a lot of times municipalities and even the co-op will go into executive session to take up non-competitive competitive matters to protect our position or our decision that we're going to make from there. And so I would not speak for them, but I'd say from our standpoint, that's where we would use executive session or confidentiality for it.
Is it normal to pay a 10% rate fee on a late bill? Can you shed some light on that?
I don't know, our rate is 6% for a late fee, or 5%, and I think from a utility standpoint, when you're not regulated, you have terms and conditions that you charge, and you might want to call around and see what everybody else is charging, but as a general rule, 10% may be a little high, what I've seen.
I have a question for Mr. Shriver as well. If we did get to where we deregulated, or if we were bought by any other co-op or entity, will the infrastructure problems that we may possess as our community be passed on to our customers, the cost?
Okay, so like an older infrastructure cost, if you were to be acquired, would be, for us, it'd be very similar to what we did with BK. We would absorb it, and then we would put that into the rate base and try to handle that with the current rate structure and revenue that you have. And if there was a problem with that, you know, you'd have a meeting, you disclose that to your members and tell them what you're doing ahead of time. But I don't know that that would be a problem right off the bat.
Y'all have questions, Ryan and Ann?
What if, you know, we voted this in years ago to become a municipal utility provider? What if the citizens decided we wanted out? How do we, does that take a petition, an election? You know, obviously, it's got to come through the city.
It's through the city. You might check with the city attorney or the city manager, and they can tell you. I think it would just, all that falls under, the municipal falls under the jurisdiction of the city council, I think. Yes, sir.
Hello, how you guys doing tonight? First of all, thank you for being here. I've heard a lot of great facts tonight that have answered a lot of my questions. As a homeowner here in Seymour, I've lived here for about 8 years. I have a house here. The services are on. Nobody lives there. What I'm asking to the city is, what are the base rates just to have the lights on, just to have water to the house? I know the trash, the sewage. What is the base? And I ask this because I also pay 2 electric bills. One down south in Sterling City. This house has me, my fiance, her 2 kids. Lights on all day, 72, 74. Our entire bill this July was $252. To have a house here in Seymour, at the end of the block on 611 Cedar, it's an old house. The lights are on, I've got a fridge plugged in and a deep freeze. My city utility bill was $128. Just my electric bill was $62. I'm asking for, what is the minimum rate? If I was paying the rate that I'm paying down south in Sterling City, just my electric bill would be $33, not $62. That's half. All right. I don't know the rest, the taxes, the fees, but I've got 12 months of bills right here that we're paying too much.
So we have a question from someone online about if we went with Tri-County, do you have a different residential versus business rate?
So our rates are for residential customer would be a $15 customer service charge, and then a price per kilowatt hour. And so it will fluctuate a little bit. Our PCRF, power cost recovery factor, generally as a general rule will stay between 1.25 cents and about 1.75 cents. And then our total rate has been averaging, we were looking at some comparisons, it's going to be about 9.4 cents in there. But I got to be honest with you, July is always high. So you may be at 10 cents for July, but you'll find in the fall it'll be in the lower end of the 9. For a commercial business, single phase service, I believe it's a $15 customer service charge. Richard's nodding, so I know I've got it right. And then price per kilowatt hour, which is on that 7 cents about, that's where it is, per kilowatt hour. And then our three-phase rate is a $25 customer service charge, and it's pretty close to that same number.
I have a question that I know a lot of people in this audience have had. If you get a detailed bill from the city, the fuel factor charge on there is 8.5 cents. Now, has anyone ran the math to see what the average is in North Texas? Does anybody look that up? We did. 4 cents a kilowatt is the going rate in North Texas for your fuel factor charge. We are being charged double that. So I do have a question, and over the 70 municipalities that I called, about 95% of them have a fluctuating fuel factor charge. Well, I'm willing to go to Las Vegas and take the gamble for it to be half the freaking price. So I would like to ask Mr. Shriver why ours is fixed, and I mean, why we're paying a fixed cost, if he can shed some light on that, from an electricity provider, and we do not have a fluctuating.
Okay, so most. Okay, so the Public Utility Commission doesn't regulate us or municipals because of the vapor status, but there are terms and conditions that we all have to operate. So your rates have to be fair and reasonable, just, and they have to be based on the cost of service study. So your rates can have, you know, there's a lot of elements that can happen with rates. You know, we prefer a customer service charge. That $15 you pay with us is the cost to averagely call a percentage of the cost of the entire system. Then we try to recover our rates and the amount of kilowatt hours. So we know that the average consumer is going to use 1,250 kilowatts on a single phase home, maybe a business X and Y, and then we build a cost of service study on that. The power cost recovery factor for us is based on the fluctuation in generation power. We buy transmission, generation, those kind of costs. Those are what we try to recover in power cost recovery factor. There's not really, as far as I can tell, really a strict criteria on PCRF, what it has to be or not. And you know, that could probably fall into the jurisdiction of the city, just like the co-op, on what your rates are going to recover and how much you need in revenue for that.
Per our city, from what I understand, our new rates will take effect in January or somewhere around then. And we won't know our rates though until November. They said, well, they'll announce our new rates to us. That contract is supposedly up in January 2021. That contract is ended, the 10-year contract that everybody in this room is referring to. I don't know the answer to that.
about that. Yeah, the question is, we're new here, so I noticed a lot of empty businesses downtown and around this area. Were we able to generate enough tax and revenue with all the businesses operating, giving the kids something to do when they come back to town, that kind of thing? Or did we just want to kill them off because we could make more money off of the electricity? I just kind of wondered why we were so empty downtown.
To answer your question, I own 3 businesses, so you got to have some pretty deep pockets to operate here, because my 2 that are in the city limits, my bill was $4,500 last month. I think I can speak on behalf of Baco's, or maybe not. Hers was $3,700 last month. This lady has incredible food. She does delivery to your home, and she's paying more in electrical than she is in lease on her property downtown. Okay, so that's why no one can survive. Well, I'm just telling you. Does that answer your question? Well, you would think more businesses here would generate more sales tax revenue. That's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to want to grow your community to generate more sales tax dollars and get more people here to spend more money if we have more things open. We shouldn't have to rely, I'm sorry, I'm going to speak for myself now, on our electrical to pay for everything that we provide in this community. We should all have to hustle and have competition, and our city should have to have it.
I think I heard you say that our city budget is 6.52.
8.7 million. Projected revenue for this year is 8.797 million.
Okay, well then my question's irrelevant. I thought you were saying it was 6.5 and then
That was
they
in
went,
2017.
and that they went over that. I want to know what they went over it with, so disregard.
Okay, so y'all forgive me, I don't have my paperwork, but I've been over this stuff quite a bit. So we have 3 businesses. One, we branched on the oil field out in West Texas, so I can compare their municipalities. Granted, it's not the same category, but we have a business over here behind the dollar store, which is in city limits. Then we branched out with my brother, which is right outside of city limits. Sales tax, I'll tell you what our sales tax, even though we have an office in Pecos, Texas, we paid our sales tax here because that's where the cash flow and the currency went through. And I told Lee, I'm gonna put our business out here a little bit, but there was months that we were making like $975,000 a month and paying sales tax on that to the city of Seymour. So granted, 1.7% goes to the Baylor County Hospital District, 1.25% goes to the city, and we still got turmoil from them, which is a whole nother ballgame. But all that revenue coming in, we're not the only ones that make around that kind of money. Not every business succeeds, and there are reasons that are right and not right for that, but there are some that do in that sales tax. Not only the electric rates, but the sales tax goes to the city of Seymour. And for them to, what I think about is I'm a nurse, and so I have these little patients, or they have their cousins, uncles, brothers, sisters that advocate for them, and they can't even pay their bills, but they're still trying to come see their little whatever because their electrical rates. And so the city, whenever I've gone to city council meetings, and they say, like he was saying before, we base our rates off of a certain set of circumstances, like the Axon terminal that's out in West Texas. Well, our yard out in West Texas, the rates there, not the oil field crash, oil field boom, were way lower than what we're paying here at the city of Seymour. I just got off work, I went to go get my spreadsheets, but I'm sure we'll have another one of these meetings and you can hear all the numbers, but significantly lower. And there's something wrong there. I mean, if we can operate out in West Texas for cheaper than what we can operate here in Seymour, there is something wrong. Because everybody knows that oil field ain't cheap, you know? So there's something wrong, something going on. And saying that to say about the contract renews January 2021. The last city council meeting I went to is whenever I said I was not going to go to another one because I had been going. I had generalized answers and put off answers. The budget wasn't even up on the website at that time because there was issues. It hadn't been for 2 years. I'm gonna name drop because Lauren said I have so many jobs. You know, I write city ordinances, and I do this and that and the other. That's not our fault. That's not the citizens' fault. You have enough money, $8.79 million, to get people in there qualified to do the jobs that need to be done and put up our budget. Recently, the golf course budget was put up. The groundskeeper, the maintenance crew, which I love them all to pieces, but they're the same people. Same people, different job titles, same job. I mean, that's the kind of things that we need someone to come in here and say, hey, just like we do at a hospital or at a nursing home, a business, we need to tighten up, we need to fix things. Ain't no shame in it. We just all need to come together and do it. It's not you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, or us against them. It's us as a community fixing things and getting together, not blaming, just saying, hey, let's make it better. And it might take some humbleness on the part of the city, but that's just what it is. So let's work together and just do it.
Mr. Schroeder can answer this question. Do MOUs, or municipally owned utilities or electric cooperatives, do you really have to answer to anyone as far as an audit or someone who comes in and checks where your rates are and if they're competitive like the state law says they need to be?
I know I can speak for us. I don't know quite sure how many MOUs are with co-ops. We're audited. We're required to be audited. We have to present the audited financial statements to our membership at the annual meeting, which is in October every year. We generally have that on file. We have a 990 required to file with the IRS that discloses all our financials. The members need to know that. And our terms and conditions, you know, I told you earlier we're out of the PUC, but our terms and conditions are regulated in the Public Utility Commission, health and safety, transmission standards, National Electric Safety Code, obviously OSHA, all those regulations do apply to us. We have to concur with those things and all the protocols with it. Financially speaking, our board is required to hire an auditor. We audit our books, and then that is turned over to the board of directors, and then that's what we submit to our membership annually.
Can you tell us what those regulations are? Like, what are y'all required? How often are you required to audit? And who is it that will come and audit? Is it someone within the city? Is it you? I mean...
So we are required to engage an auditor. There's 3 tiers. There's a tier 1 auditor, that's usually your SEC, publicly traded companies. Tier 2 auditors will tend to be the trading companies that are at the level. That's the SEC. We're at the 3rd layer. And there's only about, for co-ops, there's only about 5 or 6 firms that you can choose from that will do auditing, but they have to audit. Ma'am? No, just a co-op. And then we have to go by generally accepted accounting standards. When we were originally formed in '39, REA system, Real Electric Administration, created accounting system, and that's what all of us were operating under for a long time. So ours is Form 7, Financial Accounting Standards by GAAP, and then the auditor has to do that. And we have to do it annually. Our board has to close the books out by Texas law, Nonprofit Corporation Act. Our board has to close out a fiscal year. You have to produce the financial auditing for that and account for that in your filing we do the IRS. Yes, ma'am. It is required outside independent auditor. There's two entities. Yes, ma'am. We have to hire an auditor, and they have to present their credentials. The board has to engage an audit firm every year and certify that they are qualified and they do operate independent of us. as the employees. Yes, ma'am.
So can you answer the question? Our audit would basically be conducted by TPPA, correct? Texas Public Power Association, since we're an MOU, is that who audits our?
I'm not sure. The Texas Public Power Association is more like a trade association. So they're not a regulated entity. They'd be more like, we have electric co-op associations called TEC, Texas Electric Co-ops. So it's more like our statewide association. So an MOU would probably, you have to look at how in the law, and you can look in the Public Utilities Code, and we're Chapter 161 Utilities Code. I'm not practicing law, Larry, but you would look under your municipal code and those standards and practices being there.
Moss, Myra, do you have a question?
Several years ago, I run out there electricity higher than it needed to be. And I researched this, and I'm not as far as I can read. If you go to the Public Utility Commission, a municipally owned grid is not governed by the Public Utility Commission because they're their own entity. I'm not an auditor, that's the way I understand it. I believe the city is home rule, is that correct? It's not. Anyway, I did a lot of research on this, and I read, and I can't find what it said. Anyway, what it said was that it was not proper to charge a profit except for the maintenance of the grid. And I don't know whether I read that in case law, I don't know where I read it, but I did read it. But we're looking at this wrong, I believe. We are going to have to bring this to a vote in this city. And how we do it, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. But that's the only way we're going to get this done. They are not going to give up their authority over the utility. It is a cash cow, and we've got to come up with a remedy for this. And I don't know. Thank you.
I understand that the council's here tonight. You didn't answer my question at the council meeting. You guys are elected by the people, for the people. Why, in the middle of COVID-19, when people are losing their jobs and can't afford, and the highest electric bill month, did you raise the electric rates? That's what I want to know. Do you have an answer for that?
Well, I mean, we can't get an answer from their perspective because this is our meeting, but
I can tell you I spoke with some of them individually, and they were hit with some congestion fees is their justification, and so they passed it off to us. And then they're doing that too.
That's what I wanted to ask the gentleman from Tri-County about congestion charges. Are you familiar with those? Because that was the main reason, as I understood it, that they could get hit for $1,000 a month or $200,000 a month. And they were getting hit for hundreds of thousands of dollars, which just blows my mind. Well, how do you predict that? Well, they tell us you can't. It just shows up and you pay it, which seems just crazy. But anyway, if you could speak to that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'll try to answer that for you from my side. Okay, just so y'all kind of know, our power bill this month was $19.7 million, and in that $19 million power bill is the congestion cost, transmission, ERCOT, and delivery. And the way we do it, we have to take our load at each substation level,
and we do what is called a load profile. And we measure by stacking everybody, we get everybody here on the same load. I can stack them into layers and we go into that energy market and we bid it. The congestion cost is the amount of cost that it takes to deliver the generation to the loads. And so sometimes a larger entity, you are able to shelter more of that risk out as opposed to a smaller entity. So it could be, and I'm speaking on their behalf, I'll speak on ours, but it could be as we see a lot of little co-ops a lot of times, they don't have enough to share to take that risk. And it's what I was telling you earlier when I was talking sincerely how the market's changed from energy delivery to more of a trading market. That's the part that you got to be careful about. So like with us, things that we'll look at is congestion costs are high is because you've got a whole lot of load going into what's called the North Hub zone of ERCOT. You can read about that in ERCOT. There's too much power going in and not able to get enough out. And so that congestion has got a fee on it. So chances are they probably are shielding some of those risks. We do that too, but it's passed over at a very high level. And our loads are delivered differently because we have multiple delivery points across our system. Does that answer your question? We do, yes, we have to. Yes, sir.
I guess I'm one of those people, I've seen you before, I was at a city council meeting. I guess I'm one of those people, I live outside the city limits, but I'm forced to have city electricity. Because supposedly I am a single serve, or I'm not dual certified, but yet I have a county pole that sits right behind my house. So I guess I'm asking, why is that? Why can I not just cut my city electric off and go with Sharp County since I am outside the city limits where I sit?
Okay, so I think when you think about your history when you acquired TU, Texas Utilities, that changed it. So originally your city boundary would be X, and acquiring that would be extra territory that maybe not technically in the city. That could be the situation there. I don't know exactly your scenario, but I'll kind of tell you. The way in 1976, 77, everybody was building lines over everybody, and the rural people wanted power, and so we all were drawn designated territories. So BK Electric Co-op had a territory, and when the city and BK Electric and Texas Electric were negotiating boundaries, those lines were drawn. So one of the deficiencies sometimes you have with cities that may be your scenario is that you could accidentally be in the ETJ or in the territory of the municipal utility serviced by them, but you can't vote for a city council member. And that representation thing from time to time has caught certain niches of people and has got them upset. And I think that, they've tried to work that out over time, but it's not something I've had to deal with on my side, but I think I know where you're talking about and where you're stuck at. And unfortunately, we can't serve you in somebody else's territory unless that utility were to grant us that opportunity to do that. So we don't get in their territory, they don't get in ours. And then sometimes in the gray area, you try to work it out with utilities. Sometimes you have to go to the PUC and file and you're it out with a bunch of lawyers and how that works. So sorry about you, but there's a couple of things you don't talk about. Lawyers are one. Never quote a politician in a public place. That's another.
Everybody's met, we're getting restless. So we all know I live out of the city limits. I love my BK. My guys were there in the middle of a storm. And I have rent property in town. My bill was $600 something there. It was was it $190 at home? So it's ridiculous what the city rates are. But what as a community do we do? Can we vote without going through them, or do
Emily's gonna speak on this for a minute.
We've been really trying to do some research, and we're going to have to do a little bit more after tonight. But one option that we may have to look into, I think everything does have to go through your council, and if they're not in agreement with their community, you can overthrow them with a petition and re-elect new ones.
And I'm going to shed some light on that too. You would be amazed at how much support we have gotten from people that lived here 30 years ago that sit now in very high positions. And I just want you to know they have all reached out to me that we need help. And they know. They were here 30 years ago when all this took place, and it's not functioning the way it was designed.
I'm sorry, but this is for the poor Tri-County guy. What would it do if that were to occur and Tri-County became an option for all of us? What would an implementation look like when you have a large amount of people in the community that are all wanting to service, as far as time frame, phasing, what to expect? Because I think it plays a part in the decision as well.
Say probably, connectivity would probably, you'd go back to your original delivery points and try to switch the loads over to our system. That's how you would phase it at the highest delivery points, possibly at the substation or something like that. It's always about the details. So hypothetically, you have to kind of look at I've never looked at the grid completely of the city, and I would not know until we sit down with some engineers and looked at what it would take. I would venture to say you wouldn't be without power for any amount of time. If that transition to you, the consumer, would never change. But the financial and all that might take some time. I just have to look at that and see, working with the city, if that's what the people want to do, we'd work through that and probably communicate a transition to you or a timeline if that's what they wanted. A couple of things different in the way, like we mentioned earlier, operate. Our app our co-op app would have your usage, outage reporting, ability to pay on that. So electronically, you would be able to we would keep you informed of anything we're doing out here. We've got some outages in Weatherford right now, and so we were able to text our members and tell them outages. We would use that same kind of communication with something like this, and then we do newsletters and let our members know how long it's going to take and what it is. But electrically speaking, we just have to look at that to make sure. Sorry, I just don't know. I apologize.
So how does this all play in if we were to switch over and get on a co-op for our electric provider or any other provider? And will we still generate a sales tax from your services or a franchise tax, or our cities still benefit from your services as far as at a tax standpoint?
Yes, ma'am, we wouldn't leave town or nothing. So we'd be here. Yes, the city's taxes are be added to our electric bill just like now, and they would be passed through. And then we do have, you mentioned franchise tax, we do have a lot of cities that we serve in their territory. We pay a franchise fee, that money goes to the city. I believe the city of Peaster and Brock and Annetta, Keller, South Lake, Westlake, Colleyville, Saginaw, Haslett, Weatherford, Hudson Oaks, Lido, Brock, Millsap, Granbury, probably all city municipal franchise fees that we pay. And those are passed on to consumers. So that revenue by law is a tax that goes back to the city. And that's generally controlled by the city council and the city government on what that rate is and what they charge. There's a general rule with co-ops.
Thank you.
I've got a question for you and Emily. I appreciate what you've done, but my question is,
do you have a plan that you would like to present to us? Are we going to do a petition? Are we going to do a protest? What do you think we should do at this point?
Okay, it's my understanding from a legal standpoint, our next step would be basically a referendum, is how we got in this situation. So if we can't sway our city council to do what's in the best interest that we have elected them for as this community, then we have to call a referendum and we have to vote them out one by one until we get somebody in there that is going to work for the people, what this system is designed to do. So it can be done, don't worry, I have a plan.
Okay, so one more thing I wanted to tell you guys before I have to leave. But, so Tuesday at 6 p.m., I want to know, it's not on the city budget that's online, that's where they post it. It's not at City Hall where they post other things, because I go up there quite often. Like, sometimes I wasn't allowed because of COVID, but at any rate, when was the last time that we were financially audited? Who was the outside financial auditor? And so there's going to be a budget meeting Tuesday at 6 p.m. and I urge you all to attend that. So let's come to our concerned citizen meetings. I'm all for it. I'm all about it. But also that budget meeting where it's not their meeting, they don't have to answer questions. Well, the budget meeting is their meeting and they do have to answer questions. And there's forms on the city website for proposed agendas, or if you want to speak, etc. Fill one out. I'm gonna, because I mean the golf course, that just raises my eyebrows in ways you cannot even imagine. Whenever my friend's grandma cannot afford her bill, which we help them pay because that's what we do in Seymour. We are Together Citizens. So I want to go to this budget meeting and I have questions that I need answered. So where does the money go? Code enforcement ticket money, electricity, water bill money, etc. So, I mean, I just urge you all, 6 p.m. Tuesday, what is that called, that place, the auditorium? At the old auditorium, right? Old auditorium, or the basement of City Hall, one or other. It's on the city website, though. Anyway.
I just want to say one thing, just please be kind and, understand we were just here to help you answer questions. So anything that you heard was not proper, I'll be glad to follow up with you, but we just sincerely wanted to be here with you. There's members here that asked us to be here. And I just say, whatever you do, no matter how to do it, in good, sincere honesty and Christian manner to one another, respect one another, because the future of the community, the future of Tri-County is all in your hands. And so show the generations below you and the ones that are going to come behind you, show them there's a good way to do it, there's a Christian way to do it with one another, and do it with kindness. And we'll be glad to help anyone we can.
Yes, I would like to thank Mr. Shriver for making the drive here to answer questions on behalf of me inviting him and my sister. I think we can all agree that Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think we can all agree that progress was made here tonight, whether it be in gathering facts or becoming one step closer to a solution. Thank you again for attending and supporting our community. Updates, hopefully we're going to get updates in the newspaper, and we did live stream it on social media, and Joe Campos, shout out, our free audio video, we will be publishing all of this online as well later tonight.